maybe I'll kick off our questions if I can with my own, and it was a kind of combination of some of the things that came up from a few of you, and I hope maybe you've all got some thoughts that on this is the view of whether or not you see what you're doing and the role of e-cargo bikes as being a kind of disruptive. Are you disruptive technologies, or are you disruptive businesses, or is there also, or are you also feeling pressure to present as not too scary, not too different, totally, achievable for when you're persuading businesses that it's feasible to use an e-cargo bike service? I'm wondering if there is a tension between kind of being part of the disruptor community and also not wanting to scare people off, wanting to convince them that it's feasible. I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that, wants to jump in. Go, Glynis, start us off.
Yeah. I think exactly that on a local level. That business of trying to build up a personal relationship, with each of our retailers and being able to have the freedom of having a conversation with them. I think it would be very different if we were, trying to get to Costa Coffee and to be honest, even the co-op supermarkets, you can't ever talk to the person that owns the shop. So there isn't that personal approach. You can't say come out and feel it. And we're really lucky in that we've got people that are volunteering to help us make this kind of change in Chorlton. So we're not sitting there with a cost pressure on us to, if you don't take it, we're sunk. It's like it's a nurturing relationship. But a number of people go, yes, but I've got a guy who does these deliveries for us in a van, and you go, actually, no, I don't really want that guy to lose his job. So it's like, of course, but maybe your guy that does the van wants to have a go on our bike. How about that? So I think that kind of community-based response, we're fortunate to be able to have that and nurture those relationships. Yeah.
That's really nice to be. That's really living the two arms, one heart mantra you've got. I'm guessing some of the disruptor technologies seem to be really key to your business, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're quite lucky in that we're in London, so there's just a huge amount of work for us here. So we think the size of the market segment, a conservative estimate's like £1 billion worth of work a year. So we can be big and loud and get in people's faces, because if that annoys one person, then it will get someone else's attention and we'll get their work. So there's so many people that we could potentially be working with. That are, we are big, bold and brash, and we wear pink, and everything about the brand is designed to kind of stand out and to get in people's faces and to challenge their thinking, make them think about, are they doing things the best way? Not just with logistics either, but we're, I like to think that we're encouraging people to think bigger about the fact that, like a few years ago when we started, what we're doing today was thought of as not possible, not viable, and everyone told me I was an idiot, told us we were idiots. But we've grown hugely, and there are so many other sectors where there are similar bits of work, ideas that can bring about real change and have real benefits for society, as well as provide opportunities for individuals to do things. I think so. Yeah, we've gone down the disruptor route, where we have tried to challenge people's thinking, and that doesn't bring everyone with you, and that's fine. But when people see you growing and growing and growing, then even if they questioned you to start off with, even if they thought it wasn't possible to start off with, when they find out that their competitor is working with you and they keep losing customers to their competitor because there's a better level of service being provided to their competitor, then even the most skeptical businessman will change their mind and we'll start to come knock on your door and come and try and work with you. It's really interesting that the hot food sector was one of the first ones that really it's got its teeth into us. So we just worked with a couple of hot food restaurants, and we didn't think it would be that big a sector of what we do. And the next thing that we knew, we had like CEOs of massive companies ringing me up and begging me for us to take on more of their work, because we just weren't able to keep up with the levels of orders that were coming in for large hot food orders. So this is like you're delivering 200 dinners to an office. The order value is maybe £2,000, and food aggregators are making that sale, and they're making like 600 quid from that sale. We charge them 20 quid to do the delivery, and we can do that delivery much more reliably, because in part because of the fact we use bikes, but also because of the way that the company is structured, and the fact that I will go and jump on a bike to make sure that we get that order on time. And that has such huge value when the margin's really high, and we're cheaper anyway. So why would people not use this? But that applies across all different sectors. But in this particular sector, they found out about us, and we've got into enough niches that suddenly it all escalates way out of hand, and you have to have quotas for different companies saying we'll take 10 jobs from you and 10 jobs from you, and no more, because otherwise we won't be able to deliver the level of service that everyone's come to expect.
Amazing. Anything from the group at Salford? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we obviously sort of were analysing sort of other people's experiences and thoughts about it, really. So I can't say we were directly involved in anything disruptive, but it's something that came up, I think, through several of the conversations I had with some of the interviewees in the focus groups, was that sort of the challenges around that disruption. So I think, and I touched on it when we were giving our presentation earlier, about the sort of potential changes in business practices and what that level of disruption means sort of internally for a business or an organization, sort of came up quite a bit. So that's kind of like, that was the sort of engagement with the idea of disruption that we had, I think.
Brilliant. I'm looking through the chat and trying to ask some questions. So I've just noticed Marketa has asked about barriers to setting up, and in some of the presentations we talked about a few, and also mentioned, I think earlier in the chat, people were talking about the idea of a logistics hub or a micro logistics hub, and how that might support by helping to share some of the resource needs amongst different users. So I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit more about some of the barriers that still exist, maybe also some barriers that you've overcome, so that we're not entirely negative, thinking about some of the different barriers that we're still facing and have faced.
Well, I mean, I can quickly jump in with this, and then maybe Glynis and Ben can also sort of build on it as well from their first-hand experience. But some of the barriers that came up in our conversations, our discussions, most promptly was sort of the bikes are big and the bikes are expensive for a lot of people. And I suppose it's important to remember as well that a lot of the businesses we spoke to, who were interested in using e-cargo bikes as part of business operations, weren't themselves particularly experienced cyclists, or even someone who rode a bike occasionally. So they were sort of coming at it completely sort of new, as it were. And you could argue that some of the barriers to cycling in general, whether it be confidence of cycling on roads and being able to tackle traffic and filter through traffic and things like that, all of these things suddenly have to be overcome in one go. And I think I think I saw a similar question came up in the chat earlier about the challenges around e-cargo bikes, riding them on the roads in heavy traffic, and is that a barrier to people who, let's say, aren't cyclists or don't have a huge amount of experience riding a bike, how do they then get to the point where they consider an e-cargo bike? And I think that journey is really quite an interesting one, because you can, some of the people we spoke to who were using e-cargo bikes as part of the research, we could sort of create a quite a well-defined path of, well, they ride a bike, they have ridden a bike for years, they're quite confident cyclists, they understand cycle lanes, ways to move around the city that avoid busy routes or whatever it might be, the off-road cycling infrastructure, the canals, the converted railway lines, whatever it might be. And then, so that jump to e-cargo bikes is all of a sudden just getting used to riding a slightly bigger bike. Whereas when you've got people who are coming from very minimal experience of riding any kind of bike, getting them onto an e-cargo bike, there's all of a sudden many other rungs involved, I'd say, in sort of getting them to that place. And perhaps Ben and Glynis have more to say on this as well from their experience.
Yeah, I think Claire and I just went, we're going to do this. So actually, you know, one of the barriers is, well, you know, we haven't got any money, we haven't got this, we haven't got that. You can just focus on the thing. But actually what we did was, well, let's just, you know, I said to Claire, careful what you dream for, because, you know, we might just get it. And we did. We just went, you know, Manchester Bike Hire went, yeah, here you have a bike. And I said I was happy to put in some money, and off we go. And yes, you know, I could see Ben was saying that you've got about 14 grand investment, you know, from the founding group there. You know, we've gone for 7 months now, and it's all been voluntary, and that's probably about the same amount of money, but it's volunteer time. So, you know, that what we can't do, I think, was about, we grew some balls and went, we'll make it happen, honestly. And I think that's just a positive attitude. That's what I would say. Thanks.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Ben? You've kind of ridden the ridden the wave a bit further.
I'd say the biggest barrier is people not understanding what is possible by bike. And what Luke was saying really rings true for me. I mean, we were able to make it work from the outset because we were from bike racing backgrounds, and knew the city, and so we were able to cover ground quickly, which made the economics work. And then we retrospectively worked out how to train other people to replicate that. And you know, it's that kind of familiarity is really important, but also for us, the key difficulty in acquiring clients is people not believing that we're going to be able to do the work that they need doing. And pretty much, I mean, everyone's so skeptical, and you have to spend hours like trying to talk people through how you're going to do things when you first start out. But obviously, having reached the scale we have now, we just we work with people that want to work with us, and there's loads of people that want to work with us, and then people who are skeptical will come later, and that's fine. But those early client acquisitions were huge amount of so much work to get people on board. Freddy's Flowers are an interesting example, because they used us when we were really small to do like where they had messed up and missed out deliveries. We would go and collect from their depot in southwest London and then deliver all across London. And then we didn't really work with them for a bit. And then we started doing taking on more of their deliveries and doing several hundred deliveries a day for them. And then we helped them acquire cargo bikes, train some riders, and then help them set up their own operation. And you know, like, so they went from being very skeptical to kind of being on board with it if it was cheaper, to really buying into the whole bikes thing. And, you know, we are set up to help other companies to do their own in-house logistics, because you know, it doesn't make sense for everyone to outsource their deliveries. So that is another thing that Pedal Me does.
Thank you. There's something in the chat actually that I wonder if we could I'm going a bit rogue, and I might ask a question of a member of the audience, which I think is the wrong way around. But I'd be interested to know a bit more about the difference that the density of the place you're working in might have. And I noticed that Tim Godwin, I don't know if you can turn on your microphone, if we can turn it on for you. I think it would be really interesting because we've heard from these examples of, you know, a neighbourhood in Greater Manchester and in London, but also there's a lot of questions about the smaller market towns. And I think you're working in Hastings. Maybe you could give us a very quick thought about how the density or the scale of the town has changed things.
Might just have to switch your microphone on first, Tim. If you could go to the bottom middle part of the screen. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm putting you on the spot there, so thank you very much for joining us.
I've got my 2-year-old daughter sitting next to me, so she might chip in too. Yeah, it's just we're a very average small South Coast town, so there's 90,000 odd people, and there's certainly demand for this sort of service in these size towns. We've struggled not with demand and not with riders and not with the technology. We've struggled a bit with funding. We haven't really been very successful with grant funding through our local authorities here, which has been a bit unfortunate over the last 6 months, but there's more demand than we can meet. And that's obviously a nice problem to have. And yeah, this town is the longest distance within it is about 6 kilometers. And we've done across 3 bikes somewhere around 3,500 miles over the last, yeah, something like that. I haven't got the data, I haven't got any of the numbers in front of me. Yeah, it exists. The demand exists in small towns, and I think that is really interesting because obviously London is a bit of an outlier in terms of UK cities. It's so big and there's so much work there, whereas there's a lot of places like this, and the difference. Our air quality down here can be terrible. Eastbourne, just along the coast from us, has had the worst air quality in the UK at certain points over the last few years. So it's, yeah, the reasons to do it in these places are just as pressing as anywhere else.
Yeah, thank you for jumping in. That was amazing. If any of the rest of our panel wanted to also kind of comment on that idea of different densities and how you've maybe scaled up to the whole of London or plans to scale up from Chiltern, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting discussion. I think in many ways, starting out, it would be easier in a smaller town than London. I think that you know, you can see the success of psychologistics in sort of small cities, big towns. But my feeling is that psychologistics should be possible to make work in market towns too, because the same advantages apply as long as the sites where deliveries are coming from are within the town or very close to. Because if you're having to travel a long way where you'd be competing against a dual carriageway, a van on a dual carriageway, it would be difficult to compete for speed.
Yeah, of course. And any other thoughts from the panelists?
Yeah, it's a discussion that we're having. You know, do we go from Chorlton bike deliveries to South Manchester bike deliveries? And then I go, well, would Pedal Me like to have a franchise in Manchester and, you know, help unite the various people in Manchester or Greater Manchester, and we could just, you know, be part of your family, Ben. But we need to wait till January to have our big picture thinking day, once we've delivered Christmas trees and we look at the lie of the land. But Pedal Me in Manchester might be really nice.
I think it'd be really great in Manchester. Glynis, send me an email. We'll talk about it.
So there we go. We're setting up new franchises now. Pedal Me MCR. Excellent. I'm conscious of time, and we've had loads to talk about. It's been excellent. So I'll thank again our speakers from the group at Salford, and Glynis down in Chiltern, and Ben down in London, finding a quiet street in London to talk to us from. Excellent work. And thank you to our audience participation. The chat's been excellent. I've noticed we've had people from all over, you know, down in Hastings. I think I spotted a comment from Copenhagen, from all over. So thank you very much for everyone for joining us. A little reminder that our next seminar is scheduled for the 18th of February, where we're going to look back in order to look forward, thinking about COVID-19 and mobility. So yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah.
I'll do a very solo clap. Thank you
Thank
very much.
you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you.